Okay, folks, how you doing? Hey, I just wanted to point out this really interesting opinion piece about Karl Marx and why he needed Jordan Peterson's advice on life. And I actually agree with this quite a bit. And I've been reading quite a bit on Karl Marx lately, and who he was as a person too, and that his own life. His own sentiments about just his personal life and his habits, especially, were reflected through his ideology. And that's why also his ideology is just so full of holes. And that this man, in essence, there was his habits too, and his strange outlook on his personal feelings about things were all integrated into his ideology, and you can see why communism, based on Marxist ideology, has been so horrible for the world, has been such a disaster, the biggest human rights disaster in the entire world. You're talking upwards of 140 million people murdered in the name of this ideology, of Marxist ideology. Soviet Union, China, Cambodia, North Korea. The list goes on, okay, of the failures of the states who have adopted Marxist ideology. And so let's take a look at this. Why Karl Marx desperately needed Jordan Peterson's advice. More than anyone else in history, Karl Marx exemplified trying to fix the world while neglecting to clean one's own room first. And you know that saying, he has. And we'll get to that. As I make my way through Paul Kengor's wonderful book, The Devil and Karl Marx, numerous things stand out about the father of communism. It is not an exaggeration to say that it's hard to imagine a more wretched human being than Karl Marx. It was almost as if all of the worst traits of humanity were bundled into this one spiteful man who then constructed a philosophy based on his own bitterness and self-loathing. He was lazy but greedy, always begging for money from family and friends who feared for his happiness and sanity. Marx did not seem to notice or care. They were simply a means to an end for him. Does that sound familiar? A means to an end. What would you call that? The decrepit utopia at the end of the Marxist rainbow. Essentially, that's my opinion on it. I mean, that rainbow leads to, what have we seen? That rainbow of, hey, we'll get to a utopia. In the end, what happens is mass murder and imprisonment. He was so self-centered, one wonders if he was on the spectrum for like autism. His lechery and drunkenness are well chronicled, but what struck me is that Marx was a total slob, which he was. Here is how he was described in a Prussian police report circa 1850. Quote, "Washing, grooming, and changing his linens are things he does rarely, and he likes to get drunk. He has no fixed times for going to sleep or waking up. Everything is broken down. In a word, everything is topsy-turvy. To sit down becomes a thoroughly dangerous business." And I'll tell you why. This literally has to do with his physical health. Due to his hygiene, he had boils, and we'll get to that, all over his skin. As someone of German ancestry, I can attest that this type of slovenliness is not a typical trait of Germans. Then or now, Germans tend to pride themselves on their cleanliness. Yes, this is true. Some Germans, not all. Some Germans that I've met, I lived in Germany for a while, are truly if you want to see the apex of anal retentiveness, I think is how you say it, being anal retentive, go to Germany and you will see a few people like this. Not all of them, they're great people. Some of them are just fantastic people, actually, but you'll notice it's in some places. Let's see. Marx was not like this. And like his home, which was filthy, disordered, and disheveled, so was Marx's corporeal body. He stunk badly and suffered from boils head to toe, including on his genitals. The historian Paul Johnson offers a vivid description in his magnificent book, The Intellectuals, but I'll spare you that. Yeah, and everybody around him in his personal life, they had to suffer with this too. His children, um, his wife, you know, his parents they did love him. People cared about him, but they were always seemingly very, very concerned about him, especially his parents. But I think Marx was, like this guy says, he might have been on the spectrum or something. Something um, wasn't quite. He was not a level-headed individual at all. And in fact, there's so much evidence of that. You can go through his personal writings and see his letters to other people, and you can tell this is not a level-headed person, a person who vociferously supported violent revolution. Okay, that was the only way to get anything done, to have a new world order. Okay, at one point, Marx joked to his partner Friedrich Engels that he had become the object of plagues, just like Job, though I am not as God-fearing as he was. And that's unfortunate. He should have been, because I think that didn't work out so well for him. I bring all this up for a reason. Marx was devising a system for living that had universal ambition. Here's the tie-in: how one's personal life can be thoroughly integrated into a theory about the masses, like how the masses should live, in a new world order. If you live a turd lifestyle and you're writing an ideology for people to live by, like almost a gospel to live by, it all starts at the core. It all starts from you and your habits. Those habits will seep through into your ideology about how people live. This is why Marxism is such a massive failure. His manifesto demanded a massive change in human nature in its quest to achieve the secular righteous goal of establishing the truth of this world. One can only wonder if such lines were what Marx's father had in mind when he chided his son, who every week or two discovers a new system. Yeah, it's interesting. But for all his grand works and all his grandiose visions for humankind, Marx could not even manage his own home, his own health, or his own life. I don't wish to minimize these tasks. Managing one's own life is not as easy as it sounds. Sometimes it feels as if there are 1,000 hurdles in front of us that prevent us from living the life we want, and twice as many pitfalls. But jumping those hurdles and learning how to avoid the pitfalls is the path to individual growth, and that is the path to a better world. Wow, I really, really like that. That's great life advice, period. I'm going to have to tell my son some of that. 1,000 hurdles in front of us. Sometimes it appears that way. 2,500 years before Marx was born, the Greek philosopher Plato offered better advice than a communist philosopher. Fix yourself first. And this goes along with these two kind of perspectives on approaching life. One is that there are people out there, many leftists, people who support Marx or believe in his ideology, that believe changing people can only come from the outside. If you change from on a massive scale first, then that will change people to become upright or moral or ethical. Okay, so you completely change a system. You force everyone to eat crickets, and hence you make better people. Okay, the other system is you go to a person and a person changes their own habits, their own personal bad habits. They change who they are. They obtain a set of morals, and then they affect the world that way. They change other people. So one, starting with the individual first and looking at the inside. Clean your own room first, rather than going outside and go, everybody else needs to clean their room and I'm going to force them to. Okay, which is kind of the Marxist, like a simplified version of Marxist ideology. So Plato did offer better advice. Jordan Peterson has expounded on this idea more recently, advising that if someone wants to improve his own life and the world, he should start by cleaning his own room. If you can't even clean up your own room, Who the hell are you to give advice to the world? Peterson asks. It's advice Karl Marx would have benefited from, but I don't think he would have been capable of heeding it. One of the good things I noticed in Kangor's book is that Marx received a lot of good advice from people who loved him and worried about him. His father wrote a touching and prophetic letter to his son, telling him he worried about his ability to find happiness. Will you ever, and that is not the least painful doubt of my heart, be capable of truly human domestic happiness? Heinrich Marx once asked of his son. I thought that was amazing. And his response, Karl Marx's response, was to ask his father for more money. I highly recommend that book, The Devil and Karl Marx. You'll learn a lot about his personal life, especially through his poetry. He had some odd poetry. He had, I mean, I think he was a decently good poet, but some of his poetry is, the reason it's called The Devil and Karl Marx is because some of it is very dark, is very, very dark. And that's not surprising. It's super, super dark and verging on kind of relishing in that darkness. It's very strange. I highly recommend it because then he kind of plucks apart some of these poems and some of his personal letters. And it's interesting because the personal life of that man definitely played a huge role in his Marxist ideology for the world. And thus we've seen so far, thanks to the 20th century so far, the awful consequences of Marxism on countries and people through starvation, mandated government starvation in China, the Great Leap Forward, that's an example, and through the Soviet Union especially, and North Korea, as I said. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Let me know your thoughts, folks. Let me know what you think, and put a like on the video if you like it. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I will talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.